Alright, this is, you can roll camera. New camera roll 104, scene 100, take 1. Mark. Action! You are saying ready? Action! Murder Party is the Breakfast Club with chainsaws and hard drugs.
Welcome to your murder.
Halloween night, a lonely man finds an invitation to a party, murder party, and uncharacteristically decides to go, making a makeshift suit of armor. All right, Sir Lancelot, I'm going.
My character comes up with a scheme to invite some random dude to a party and then kill him in the name of art.
He finds himself in the hands of a rogue art collective. In their efforts to impress Alexander and outdo each other, the collective unravels.
Comedy and hair-raising tension ensue.
Murder Party has burned faces, naked breasts, big laughs,
lots of swearing, killing,
Blood, guts, mayhem.
cats and dogs,
chainsaws,
heterosexual sex, homosexual sex.
you know, pizza, cake.
Just a little bit of character development.
It's all there.
That was a good one.
A whiz-bang, jaw-dropping shock fest that will leave you running for the light switch because you'll be so scared. You'll want the lights on.
Everybody dies.
I could happily tell anyone to go see this movie and feel prideful that, you know, this is something that I made with my buddies who I've been making movies with since the 6th grade.
Growing up in suburbia, I think in any suburban town, filmmakers will gravitate towards each other, and Lab of Madness did that.
Oh man, suck mine.
My mom had brought home a VHS camcorder, and I think that's what we used for MEGACOP, our first film as an ensemble.
Real, like, fascist cop on the loose, just executing Cuban drug dealers, which, Cubans, right here.
I think we all died at least 2 or 3 times in it. You put on a hat sideways and you're a different character, you can get shot again.
I was pretty blown away by the bloodshed that I saw in MEGACOP, and I knew that I needed to get down and be part of this group.
Eat this. What is this?
I met up with Macon Blair and Christopher Sharp, and we started what we called Twisted Cinema, which we didn't really do anything but just sort of like play around with the camera and film making, smoking cigarettes.
One night, the remake of Night of the Living Dead, the whole high school was there, as I recall.
We were there and we ran into Sandy Barnett, who was a year above us, and kind of his crew of miscreants, and they had been making their own thing that we were not aware of under the title Western Pictures.
I think we all kind of felt sorry for him because he's sort of a big bozo, and we formed, we merged and became Butt Stupid Pictures.
The 80s were a perfect time to grow up making home videos and flicks, because video technology was such a novelty that teachers would pretty much give you the leeway to make any written assignment, any book report or term paper that was due, that they'd have to proofread or whatever and give you a grade on, to translate that into a video project.
Right. Now I'm upset.
And it was all just an excuse to put on kilts and swing plastic swords around and stuff like that.
I certainly knew about, a group of basically boys that made movies at our high school and thought that they were just stupid and idiotic.
London's on fire! We would dress up in women's clothes. If there was a woman, we would talk in funny voices, often bad British accents, but it almost always included some sort of blood spray.
I ruined my Birkenstocks.
That started off just kind of, you'd have a blood pack, often with paint-based blood, really shitty stuff in your hand, maybe it's a Ziploc bag. You'd get shot and it's like, ah! And blood would splatter.
We were trying to come up with a better technique. And then all of a sudden Jeremy rolled in with like a bunch of fireworks, a bunch of ladyfingers, and was like, hey, what about this? And strapped him to his chest and took out a lighter and lit it.
When that happened, we realized we'd reached a new level of filmmaking, and it really just kind of took off and became very prolific with our filming very quickly.
Most everybody else, you know, after school, they go to their, you know, after school athletic thing that they would do. Sports, I believe, is what they're called. And dates, other people would go on. And we would just hang out with each other and make movies. Like Macbeth and like MEGACOP 2000.
You are our leader. You even took a vow of silence. Silence vow.
Fuck that. I'm taking a vow of violence.
It's like a redneck SWAT team was a good one.
All right, free redneck video, please. You are in violation.
Bob. I liked Bob.
By Ass Kickers, Jeremy Saulnier's Super 8 masterpiece, I had become co-writer and co-star.
We became a really tight-knit crew, and we made movies all throughout high school, and we kept in touch in college in our various film schools, and it was a really fantastic convergence.
It started off with a pretty big group of us trying to, like 5 or 6 of us with Lab of Madness, trying to make a feature film happen, trying to make something happen.
We had been developing a script for quite some time. I believe we started in the year 2000. The film is entitled Mustache. We had been through several drafts of the script. We went back and forth, Chris Macon and I.
Tried to get it going in 2002. It didn't quite happen, so we ended up making a short film called CRABWALK, which was fantastic for us. CRABWALK enabled us to meet enough people that there's people interested in our feature.
Actually, I'm here about a job. Are you hiring?
Nope.
We had been trying to go through the proper channels to get the project funded by investors. We were waiting for a green light, and that green light never came. I had suggested let's just do Murder Party as a feature film.
Fuck you, Hollywood. We're gonna make our own film.
I shot the opening sequence of the film before page 1 was written. That, I think, was really important to the process, was pulling that trigger right away.
Literally, we green-lit it ourselves with no money at all in August or September of 2005. And by February of 2006, we were shooting.
It was like getting a phone call from like the president and being like, son, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna do it for, you know, the Lab of Madness, I guess, instead of America.
Preparing for a murder party is probably a little bit like labor, because you know you went through it and you know it happened, but you don't really remember. You don't remember the pain, the suffering, and the torture. This one will always be a part of me.
I came up to Brooklyn to meet with everybody to have an initial production meeting. And there were all these new faces there. There's a woman named Kate Berry, who was the line producer. There's this guy, Bill Tangradi, who was another producer and was also going to be one of the actors. They're just new people that have been brought on because they were good at what they do. I was concerned about like the oil and water possibility. I mean, this group of us that have been, you know, so tight for so long, and then like, you know, introducing strangers into it, it could be really, really, really difficult for other people to work with us.
Not this coming shot, but the one after that.
Oh, the cum shot. I've been waiting for this all day.
It was astonishing just because everybody was working for no money, and just the enthusiasm for the project that all these, you know, outsiders brought to it just kind of amped us up even more.
It just kind of became very infectious, and that the whole crew was suddenly a part of us. There's no problems integrating everyone into this idea and how it was going to run, and because of that, it ran really smoothly.
I do remember, however, I have to say this, the fucking freezing cold of the warehouse.
It was cold as hell in there, sometimes dropping to 30, 35 degrees inside. I had the benefit of wearing cardboard, which, as America's many homeless can attest, is a fairly good insulator.
It was a really shitty, toxic warehouse. When you see in the movie the chainsaw go through the boxes, that let off a storm of fucking mold and fucking who knows what.
It looked like some kind of place where Chinese goods were stored. Like pencils with like a pizza with a face, or like an eraser with an ice cube driving a car.
We were having a fucking blast on that set. It was like this bonding experience that went on, and it was like summer camp. It's kind of how I thought of it.
I would hear people say, this is the first movie that I've worked on that I've actually wanted to see.
The days that Jeremy had put aside that were going to be effects days ended up, which I think were supposed to be maybe 3 effects days, ended up getting compressed into like what was basically like half a day.
We had to compromise a lot of the makeup, but luckily we were able to really concentrate on a few marquee effects that really make the film a legitimate genre film.
The wolf melt is fantastic, deserving of Fangoria, which has been his dream since he was a kid. And the chainsaw through the face couldn't have gone off better.
It's a sculpted, fitted appliance put on Bill's face with a bladder underneath it and, tubes and everything so that we could just pump the blood. Sky had taken one of the stunt chainsaws out to a metal cutter and got like a bite, cut out of it so that it would fit in the appliance. Jeremy wouldn't let me see the footage for it, but he kept telling me, like, oh man, it looks good. It looks really good. You're gonna be really happy with it. So when I finally see the footage, it looks a billion times better than I hoped that it could look, because they had hired Chris Connolly, who does digital effects work, and they had Chris come in and essentially animate the blades on the chainsaw.
The chainsaw effect by far gets the best reaction. I mean, it sends audiences into an uproar when it happens. And that's a perfect example of the convergence of on-set makeup effects working out really well, an amazing performance by both the actors involved, and a little help from our visual effects artist, Chris Connolly.
It's the fucking tight close-up of a chainsaw on somebody's face, like with spinning blades. Beat that. You can't.
The invitation said murder party. If some jackass is dumb enough to come here, then he deserves to die.
He's a white male. He's perfect. Are you Republican?
Don't make this political. This is about art.
We kept the core of the movie, as per the indie film guidelines. People talking in a room. I'm used to guns and blood, and I've done special effects makeup. I've done visual films where I'm always jumping locations and using that as my style. But here I was, like, trapped in a warehouse with people.
What? I'm a fucking zombie.
By far the most difficult part of the film was wrapping my head around ensemble cast exchanges.
I don't know. His costume's pretty hilarious. I think he might be retarded. I need someone to run lines with me.
I think Jeremy's the only one who has the patience to put up with all the details that go into directing.
He had always been the one who kind of had the truest sense of camera work and aesthetic tastes that kind of was consistent, and really the one who had tried to become a director more than anyone else by leaps and bounds. I think he reached a level of professionalism kind of in the making of our own non-professional production that a lot of professionals could probably take a few lessons on.
I'm in awe of how Jeremy can keep track of what he wants to shoot, what he wants to get from the actors, what he's already planning months ahead about how it's going to edit. He keeps it reined in when it needs to be reined in. He lets it go bananas when it needs to go bananas.
Even when stuff would get very frustrating and takes were just going on for too long, or people weren't hitting their marks or whatever, he was always just interminably patient and encouraging with everybody.
He's good, better than good. He's great. I don't fucking know, dude. What do you want from me? I know how to fucking prune rose bushes.
When Jeremy's on a movie set, he literally forgets to eat, drink, shit, piss. It's as if the man is just like possessed by this idea. That's how I know he's going to be a good director, or he is a good director, because he sees nothing else.
It wasn't like fun for him, it was work. So I think the fun part was when it's over and he knows that he did a good job.
The whole thing was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I think that trying to maintain focus and just have the stamina to keep going every day, it's the weight of the world on you, and it's pretty much a rite of passage for any independent filmmaker.
You can have your 18-hour days. I'm more into fucking dominating bacon sandwiches at the craft table.
It definitely would occur to you at times, like, this could be a big clusterfuck and the end of every sort of creative venture that we have with these people, but it never became anything that, at least that I considered too realistically, just because I'm naive in a lot of ways. How can we go wrong? We've been friends forever.
I call this extreme truth or dare. All the kids are doing it in Belarus.
What is it?
It's truth serum.
Let's play this game. Let's be really honest.
Jeremy. Well, I wish that he were more supportive of my craft.
I actually got better directions from MapQuest on how to get to the set than I did once I got there.
Sometimes he gets so excited that words fail him.
We're moving on to what? I don't know.
I think he was wearing diapers or something at that point.
Great job, Jeremy. Real fucking professional ass.
Sandy BARNETT. He is someone you have to harness. An actor? No. Personality? Yes. He's the most inconsistent piece of shit.
You have to fondle him the whole time he's delivering his lines, or else he'll get bored and go running or something.
Maybe next time we can have trailers.
My brushes would be scattered out, and then I would what the hell, what is this? And Sandy would say, guess which one was in my butt.
What I'm going to give Paul is something I've devised called the Hairy Banana Daiquiri.
I'm the type of guy that's gonna put a couple of eggs on this bagel. And I'm the type of guy that's gonna eat this motherfucking bacon.
I just try and do it the Dennis Quaid way most days. Sometimes I do it the David Caruso way, just bringing it the James Woods style. Sometimes I do it the Tom Arnold way, just doing it the Sandy BARNETT way. It's the only way I know how.
Chris Sharp is one of the producers and also the star. So he had a lot to do.
When we get something and we know it's good, that's when we move on.
But a lot of what he did was bitch and moan.
There was just sort of always this jaw-grinding, glowering, angst that just oozed off of him.
I thought he was perfect for the role. He looked the part, but I didn't know if he could act, so might as well gag him the whole movie.
Macon's character in the movie is, he's like the grungy guy. He really took that character to heart, boy, because he was filthy, he was dirty, and just was pouring this milk water on himself. There's milk on himself, and then he'd not take a shower, so he'd have sour milk all on himself. Bathe yourself, you smell, man.
Macon would take a shit, and it would smell like a dead homeless person. And then he would be very, very happy about it. He would come waltzing in with a newspaper under his arm,
Oh yeah. Paul, I got to put in the same category as Chris. My man just had a lot of things on his plate. But I was there for at least 2 conversations where it was discussed that when the dog eats the crank and goes crazy on Sandy, that he was going to have his jaw ripped off and it was going to be gouting blood.
When Alexander walked out with, missing lips, I nearly shat myself.
Bill? I think I'm gonna let Bill skate on this one because the motherfucker didn't say 2 words. And when it came time for him to freak out, he freaked out.
When he was doing all the butchering, all the murdering, I think that that something broke in Bill, because that was totally scary.
And the shit that was coming out of his mouth was absolutely wretched. We had to ADR that stuff out. It was actually too terrifying for the movie.
I think everybody thinks about killing people, but it's just a thought. It's the thought that counts, because once you actually do kill, you might never go back. You might just keep killing over and over again until all your dreams are fulfilled.
It's hard because they say, if Martha Stewart were a guy, she'd never be called a bitch. But I don't know about Sky. I think if she was a dude, she'd be a dick sometimes.
Give me the fucking camera, Megan.
She wasn't angry all the time. She would keep it suppressed. And it's like, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, until it wasn't fine.
I'm a hard ass when men can't be hard enough.
But that's what happens when you get a bunch of people who don't do anything well, and you put them all together. Well, this is my turd. And oh, well, this is my turd. And you put them together and you still got that thing.
This was made by a group of guys who kind of always said we're going to make movies together, and held through on that promise to ourselves and to each other. And I'm hoping that a lot of people who are going to see this DVD are kind of that same ilk. Young bucks who are coming up who want to get into film, want to make movies, and film school, whatever. And all I can say is, we'd been waiting for many years for this to happen, waiting for people to give us money, waiting for all of the right elements to come together. And then one day we just kind of decided to stop waiting, and we made it happen ourselves. And it was hard, and it was frightening, but at the same time, I would not exchange it for anything.
It was really empowering to make our own introduction to the industry, not have anyone have any say whatsoever as to how we were going to do it.
We had a great run with our short film CRABWALK at Slamdance in 2004, and I think they were the first festival we heard from that we had been accepted to, and so that sort of felt like a homecoming. There was a real, we've done this, the hard part is over, and now we get to just bask in sort of the glory of an audience clapping and laughing in all the right parts and cringing in all the right parts.
In 10 years, I hope we're all doing well, but I know at the very least, the cast should be doing well. I guess they said that about The Breakfast Club, too. So good luck to you all.
It'll be nice to have a record of a relatively slim and head full of hair Sandy that I can be like, I wasn't good looking, but I had hair.
And hopefully, I can go into a video store when I get older, or go online, or access the movie in the chip in my brain or something in the future. It'll be coming full circle from being a clerk at a shitty porn store to, being an old pervert with a chip in his brain.
To finally come together like this on our own film and get to work together in the capacity that we always hoped that we would, and that we've been talking about since we were 13 years old, and then to actually have it get released, internationally and domestically. I mean, you can't beat that. We got to make a movie with our best friends.
You can't zoom in, but it makes the hair stand up on your arms, and it just how lucky am I that this is what I'm doing with my life.
I'm highly glad.